Hi, I wanted to share another reading strategy that you're going to learn this week, and you'll practice over the next 3 weeks in Pathway Connect English 103. And our new reading strategy is questioning. So, just to go through, there are two types of questions to ask. And what you're going to do is you're just going to ask yourself some questions. You might want to write them down. That would help in your notes. But if nothing else, just kind of think of some questions that you want your book or your web page or your article or whatever, you want what you're going to read, you want that text to answer your questions. So there's closed-in questions, like yes/no questions, or questions with just one answer, like when or who, things like that. And then there's open-end questions like why and how. Okay, why do we ask questions before we read? We want to determine and we want to guess reasons for things. We want to kind of draw some conclusions, and ultimately we want to make connections in our brains. So I'm going to show you 3 examples, our same 3 examples from a web page, a textbook, and a novel. So I was kind of previewing here. As I go through web design for multiple audiences, how to identify and define visitor segments, I'm looking through, as I look through, using my previewing, I'm kind of coming up with some questions. So I look at visitor groups, okay, and then I think, why would they want to define visitors by groups? So that's a question that I'm hoping that this article will answer when I read it. And then, so they're looking at groups in this image, in this graphic right here. And then I look at this headline, identifying problems with current design. And so I think a question that I might want to ask this article would be, well, what's wrong with the design? What would be wrong with the way a web page is designed that would create problems? And so I'm hoping that this article will answer that question. Okay, so here we're back with our business ethics, the nature of morality. And as I go through and I see here's business ethics, and then I go through here and they talk about moral versus non-moral standards. So I'm going to think one question that I would want this chapter to explain to me would be, what's the difference between what's moral and what's ethical? That would be a question I would want that chapter to answer for me. Another question, as I look at moral versus non-moral standards, this is a business ethics class textbook. Another thing is, would there be a situation when something in business would be moral and not ethical, or not moral but ethical? And, what would that situation be? So that's an example there. In a novel, here's our novel, 5 Feet Apart. I think the reason why I can't open this is because I already have one already open in Amazon. But, I'm looking here at my front cover and back cover. And as I read through about this little romance, they both have lung disease. And so I think one question I would want this story, this novel, to answer for me would be, why do they have to stay apart? If they're both sick with maybe the same kind of disease, why couldn't they be closer together? So I would want the novel to answer that kind of question. So when you have questions, a really good idea is to write them down in your notes, so that as you come to the answers, you can write those answers down. But even if you just mentally think of some questions before you read, it's going to help your brain be ready to read when you do go to read. I hope this is helpful.